I trusted him completely. But in a single meeting, he turned my world upside down. He blamed me for everything I worked so hard for, in front of everyone. I felt humiliated, powerless, and betrayed. And in that moment, I realized trusting the wrong person can cost you everything. My name is Emily Carter, and if I am telling my story today, it is not because I want anyone's sympathy. It is because silence almost destroyed me once. And perhaps, by sharing my voice, I can help someone else find theirs. I grew up in New York City, a place full of lights, dreams, and endless possibilities. Yet it never prepared me for heartbreak. I was never the loudest person in the room, never the boldest, never the one who stood out in a crowd. I was just honest to honest. Maybe, and I believe that honesty alone could protect me in a world where trust is currency. Life had been simple for me. Morning subway rides, a coffee always in my hand, music playing in my ears, and quiet. Stubborn dreams about a future I hoped would be kind to me. I worked at a growing tech company in Manhattan. A junior holi animar que elbowed myself into everything. Hard work, dedication, and integrity were my armor. Why did I know it? The world would test me in ways I could never imagine. Then he walked in. Jason Miller. The kind of man who fills a room with confidence without even trying. He spoke with precision, smiled with intent, and somehow, he made you feel like you were the most important person in the world. At first, our conversations were strictly professional, discussing projects, deadlines, meetings. But slowly, he began asking about me, my life, my fears, the small cracks I had always hidden from the world. And foolishly, I shared. I told him I was alone in the city, that I had lost my mother when I was too young to understand grief fully, that the fear of failure haunted me every single day. He listened, so I thought that listening made me trust him completely. We started having lunch together, walks across the Brooklyn Bridge after long workdays, sitting on benches in Central Park with nothing but coffee and quiet conversation. Moments that felt sacred. I thought I had found someone who understood me. Someone who saw the real me beyond the corporate title, beyond the deadlines. And then he said it. Emily, you're different. You're real. That one sentence shattered every wall I had built around my heart. I trusted him without question, and in doing so, I opened myself completely. Then came the project that changed everything. The one that decided promotions, careers, reputations. Jason and I were assigned to work closely. I've my all every detail perfect, every deadline met, every extra effort made without complaint. I even stayed late to help him when he admitted the pressure was getting to him. Little did I know, I was building the ladder he would use to step over me. The day of the review meeting is etched into my memory. Glass walls, cold fluorescent lights, senior managers seated like judges, and me, trying to hold myself together while my heart raced in my chest. Jason began speaking first, calm, poised, flawless. And then, with a confidence that cut like a knife, he claimed the project had failed because of my negligence. I blinked, certain I had misheard him. Surely, this was a mistake. But no, he continued. Every word twisted my efforts. Every pause made my silence seem like guilt. He used my name like a weapon, turned my honesty into weakness, and did it with a smile that I would never forget. Every eye in the room turned toward me. I could have defended myself. I had proof, The evidence was right there. I had the truth, and yet my voice failed me. I could not speak. I could not argue. I could only sit there, feeling myself breaking silently under the weight of betrayal. The man I had trusted most had chosen this moment to betray me in front of the world. And there was nothing I could do to stop it. Later, in the silence of the bathroom, I let myself cry. I let the tears fall until they ran dry, not from weakness, but because I had held them back for far too long. That night, as I stared out at the glowing skyline of New York, I realized a terrifying truth. Some people enter your life not to support you, but to test you, to push you to the edge so they can see how you fall. I had fallen, yes, but I was still breathing. And in that quiet, in that brokenness, a small spark of resolve was born. I promised myself then, silently and fiercely, that I would not be defined by this moment. I would not let betrayal destroy my future. I would rise not with anger, not with noise, but with strength. I would let time be my voice. And I would build myself so completely, so unshakably, that no one would ever have the power to humiliate me like that again. And so, New York faded behind me, and a new chapter waited. I didn't know what Chicago would hold. But I knew one thing. I was done being broken. The real journey, the one that would test me, mold me, and ultimately make me unstoppable, was only beginning. After that meeting, life felt different. The office was the same, the people were the same, but everything had changed. Every step I took across the polished floors felt heavier. Every glance from a coworker carried a quiet judgment I wasn't sure I wanted to face. Jason walked past me like I didn't exist. No acknowledgement. Polish. Just that same charming smile, now twisted into a reminder of betrayal. Asking myself, wonder, was I really the problem? And the more I thought about it, the more my confidence shattered, leaving me fragile and exposed in ways I had never experienced before. The nights were the hardest. Alone in my small New York apartment, staring out at the city lights that never slept, I felt suffocated by my own thoughts. The skyline glowed, but it didn't reach me. I would lie in bed, unable to sleep, replaying the meeting in my mind, imagining everyone's eyes on me. Jason's words echoing louder than any sound in the city. I hated myself for trusting him. I hated myself for believing that honesty could protect me. I hated that a single person had so easily stripped me of my dignity in front of the world. I wanted to run away. Leave the city. Leave the office. Leave every memory of that moment behind. I wanted to disappear and start over somewhere no one knew my name. Someone who had humiliated me. Even will powerless, but even in my despair, a stubborn spark refused to die. A small, quiet voice in my heart whispered, "You are stronger than you think. Emily, don't let him win." One evening, I found myself in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at my reflection. Dark circles under my eyes, a tired, hollow expression on my face, the weight of humiliation etched into every line. And yet, as I gazed at myself, I realized that this reflection wasn't just broken. It was a challenge. It was a reminder that real strength begins when the world thinks you are defeated. I whispered to the mirror, "I may be hurt, I may be tired, but I am not finished. This is not the end of my story." That night, I remembered something my mother had told me before she passed. "Emily, the world won't tell you when you're strong. You have to prove it yourself." And in that moment, something shifted. I understood that my revenge would not come from shouting or pointing fingers. It wouldn't come from complaining to HR, gossiping, or crying in front of coworkers. True revenge would be silent, calculated, and most importantly, it would come from my own transformation. I made a decision I would leave New York, not out of fear, not because of shame, but because I needed a clean slate. A place where no one knew my past mistakes or my humiliation. A place where I could rebuild myself stronger, smarter, better. Chicago called to me like a promise I had to take. The next weeks were a blur of applications, interviews, and sleepless nights. Every rejection felt like a punch. Every tiny victory felt like fuel. I poured everything I had into preparing for a new life. I learned new skills. I refined my work ethic. I trained my mind to think strategically instead of emotionally. Slowly, the Emily who had cried in silence began to rise from the ashes. Stronger than before. Each day, I told myself, pain is temporary, but strength lasts forever. Some nights, when the city was quiet and the wind rattled my windows, I would think of Jason. I imagined his smug smile, his easy charm, his confidence. I imagined telling him off, exposing him, proving him wrong. But I didn't. Instead, I let it fuel me. My revenge would not be words. It would be results. It would be me unbreakable. By the time I packed my bags for Chicago, I had made a promise to myself. I would rise above the humiliation. I would succeed on my own terms. I would become a version of myself that no one could undermine. And most importantly, I would never allow someone else's betrayal to define my worth again. Leaving New York was bittersweet. Every street, every corner, every park bench held a memory of laughter, hope, and heartbreak. But I knew the city had given me one thing, clarity. Clarity that my strength was mine to claim. That my future was mine to shape. And that the best revenge would be the one Jason could never imagine. Chicago awaited. A new seat, a new life, and a new Emily ready to take everything she had learned. Every lesson, every tear, every ounce of pain, and turn it into power. The journey had only begun. And deep dawn timed. I would not need to raise my voice. I would only need to stand tall, and that alone would be my ultimate revenge. Arriving in Chicago was both terrifying and liberating. I remember stepping off the train, dragging my single suitcase, feeling the cold wind bite through my coat. It wasn't just the wind to chill, it was the weight of starting over, of stepping into a place where no one knew my past. No one knew the humiliation. No one knew Jason, and yet it felt like freedom. Finally, I had a chance to build myself from scratch. My new apartment was small. Barely enough space for a bed and a desk. But it was mine. The streets outside were busy, people rushing, lives moving fast. And there I was, trying to catch up with my own life. Trying to find the person I wanted to become. Each morning, I would wake up with a knot of anxiety in my stomach. But I reminded myself, this time, I was in control. The first weeks at my new job were brutal. Everyone was professional, polite, but distant. I was the new girl, a junior in the eyes of some, a stranger in the eyes of all. No one knew my history, and that was both a blessing and a curse. I had to prove myself all over again, and for the first time, I understood that no one was going to hand me respect. I had to earn it every single day. I arrived early. Glatchy. I watched I listened. I learned. Every meeting, every task, every conversation was a chance to rebuild my reputation. I made notes, studied processes, anticipated problems before they happened. I didn't let my emotions control me. I channeled every ounce of fear, every memory of shame into preparation. And slowly, ever so slowly, people began to notice. But it wasn't easy. Some nights, exhaustion left me sitting at my desk with my head in my hands. Tears would come unbidden. Memories of Jason, of New York, of my broken pride creeping into my mind. And in those moments, I would whisper to myself, pain is temporary. Emily, strength is permanent. I repeated it until it became truth. Until the weakness faded into determination. I discovered something about myself in Chicago. Strength is not loud. Strength is quiet. It's waking up every morning and choosing to keep going even when your body and mind scream that you should give up. It's refusing to let the mistakes or betrayals of others define who you are. It's finding your power in solitude, in persistence, in silent work. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, I began to shine. My manager noticed my initiative, my attention to detail, my unwavering dedication. I was trusted with bigger projects. People sought my advice. I spoke in meetings, not with arrogance, but with confidence, because every word was backed by effort, by preparation, by experience. I was finally becoming someone I could respect. And through it all, Jason's image never fully disappeared. I imagined him, his smug smile, his charm, his arrogance. But now, the image no longer fueled anger. It fueled me. Every memory of humiliation became fuel for growth. Every doubt, every tear, every sleepless night transformed into determination. My revenge would not be dramatic. It would not be public. It would be unstoppable success. It would be living a life he could never touch. By Jimmy. I celebrated my first major success at work, a project delivered flawlessly. Praised by the higher-ups, I felt a sense of quiet triumph. No one cheered. There were no headlines. But inside, I felt unstoppable. I realized that the best revenge was not confrontation. It was transformation. It was becoming the best version of yourself, silently, patiently, relentlessly. One evening, as I sat in my apartment, watching the Chicago skyline shimmer under the night sky, I realized I had become someone new, stronger, smarter, unshakable, and I knew that when the day came to face Jason again, I would not need to speak loudly or prove anything. I would only need to stand tall, and my life, my success, my transformation would speak for me. Chicago had given me more than a new job, more than a fresh start. It had given me resilience. It had given me patience. It had given me myself. And for the first time in a long time, I knew that the girl who had once been broken in New York would never be broken again. The journey was far from over. I still had battles ahead, internal, emotional, and professional. But for the first time, I felt ready. Ready to rise, ready to conquer. Ready to claim the life that Jason and New York had once threatened to take away. Some people leave your life, but they never leave your mind. They linger as memories, as lessons, as unfinished business waiting for the right moment. Jason was one of them. It was a regular Tuesday morning in Chicago. The city was quiet, the sky pale with winter light. and my apartment hummed with the soft whir of my heater. I grabbed my coffee and stepped into the office, feeling calm, collected, ready. My life had changed. I had earned respect, built trust, and carved out a place for myself in this new world. I was no longer the fragile Emily who had cried in silence in New York. Then the email arrived. Today, we have an external candidate for the senior role interview. I didn't think much of it. External candidates were routine. But the moment I saw him walk into the office, my heartbeat skipped. It was Jason Miller. Desemang, same face, but different. Older, heavier, his confident swagger slightly muted. The arrogance I remembered was still there, but his aura was less commanding. He looked at me, and for a brief second, I saw recognition flash across his eyes. He knew me. He remembered. Andy? I felt nothing but calm. Gone were the days of trembling in fear, of questioning myself. I had grown, I had learned, and I had built something he could never touch. I offered him a polite smile and said, "Please, have a seat." The interview began. Jason spoke of his experience, his accomplishments, his knowledge. I listened quietly, taking mental notes, observing him, remembering New York, remembering every betrayal. His words were sharp, precise, but they could no longer harm me. I had built walls of competence and confidence that no one could break. When he finished, I closed my folder slowly and looked at him directly. "Thank you for your time. We'll get back to you." Sarcasm. No triumph in my voice. Just quiet authority. Just presence. He left the room, and I felt a strange satisfaction. He had expected confrontation, anger, exposure. He had imagined me pleading, explaining, breaking down. But I did none of that. I had no need to. My life, my career, my calm and strength spoke louder than any words could. In that moment, I realized the ultimate truth. The best revenge is not revenge at all. The best revenge is living your life so fully, so successfully, that the person who tried to destroy you is rendered powerless, without even knowing it. Walking out of that office later, I paused for a moment in front of the building's glass facade. My reflection stared back at me strong, composed, unshakable. The girl who had cried herself to sleep in New York was gone. She had been replaced by a woman who had learned, endured, and triumphed silently. Jason would never see it coming, and that made it perfect. No words, no fight, no spectacle, just me. Standing tall, living my life fully. Unstoppable. The skyline of Chicago shimmered around me as the sun dipped below the horizon. And for the first time, I allowed myself to feel pride. Not arrogance, not vengeance, but quiet, deep pride in the woman I had become. I had survived betrayal. I had survived humiliation. And I had transformed pain into fuel. And in that transformation, I discovered the most important lesson of all. You do not need to prove yourself to the person who doubted you. You prove yourself to the world, to yourself. And only then does life itself deliver the sweetest victory. I smiled, walking away, knowing one thing with complete certainty. Jason was no longer a shadow over my life. He was a reminder that I could rise, no matter how far I fell. And I had risen. The journey was over not because life stopped testing me, but because I had learned the one truth that mattered. Strength, patience, and self-belief are the most powerful weapons of all. and with them, no one can ever take your life, your dignity, or your spirit away.